The rain had already started when Mr. and Mrs. Carter pulled out of the cracked driveway, leaving their two children, Lila and Evan, behind in the old, two-story house on the edge of Pine Hollow, New Jersey. The house had been in their family for 3 generations, though no one seemed proud of that. Its peeling white paint, sagging porch, and tall, whispering pines cast long shadows even on sunny days. And tonight wasn't sunny. A storm was rolling in from the coast, the kind that made the power lines hum and the windows vibrate. Their parents were heading to a wedding in the next city, the kind of event they couldn't afford to miss even though they were a poor family. They promised they'd be back before sunrise. But promises didn't mean much on a night like this. Before long, thunder shook the house, and rain hammered the roof with the rhythm of 1,000 fingertips. The siblings had eaten, cleaned up, and shut all the windows to keep out the cold drafts. Lila, 13, retreated to her small room upstairs, while her older brother Evan stayed in the living room watching TV with the volume low. The storm kept growing darker, heavier. The whole house felt as if it were breathing with the wind. The first knock. It was around 11:30 p.m. when Lila froze at her desk. Knock. Knock. Not loud. Not harsh. Just deliberate. Her heart hammered so fast she felt it in her throat. She slowly turned to look at her door. The hallway light under the crack glowed faintly. She reached for her phone and texted her brother. Lila, are you knocking on my door? Seconds passed. Evan, no. Why? Lila, someone knocked. Twice. Evan, very funny. Storm's bad enough already. Another knock. This time softer, slower, like a fingertip dragging across wood between taps, made her jump out of her seat. She texted again, fingers trembling. Lila, I'm not joking. Please come. Evan sighed downstairs, thinking she was messing with him. But something about the timing of that storm and the trembling. In her text felt off. Reluctantly, he climbed the stairs, each step creaking under his weight. At the top, the air felt colder. Evan hears it too. He reached her door. You okay? He asked. Before she could answer, knock. Evan spun so fast his shoes squeaked on the floor. The sound hadn't come from her door. It came from the end of the hallway. The dark end. The part where the light bulb had burned out months ago and their parents never replaced it. Lila grabbed his arm. You heard it. He swallowed. Yeah, I did. The storm roared outside, and the trees scraped against the siding as if trying to claw their way in. Evan flicked the hallway switch again, even though he knew that bulb was dead. The darkness at the far end stayed solid, thick, unmoving. Let's stay together tonight, Evan muttered. Strength in numbers, right? Lila nodded. She didn't argue. Hours of fear. They camped downstairs on the couch, blankets wrapped around them. The power flickered a few times, making the TV cut out and the lamps blink. Every time the lights dimmed, they held their breath. They tried to stay awake, but fear has a way of exhausting you. Sleep tugged at their eyes, even while their nerves screamed to stay alert. Just past 2 a.m., something thumped upstairs. Not footsteps, not furniture shifting, more like dragging. A long scrape across the floorboards above them. Evan muted the TV. Lila's fingers dug into his arm. You locked all the windows, right? She asked. Yeah, he whispered, though he suddenly wasn't so sure. The scraping stopped. Then, thump, right above them, directly above the couch. Evan stood. We should check, just to be sure nothing broke. Lila stared at him like he was out of his mind. Go upstairs. Are you crazy? He hated the idea, too, but he remembered something their father always said. You've got to face the music if you want the song to end. And the noise wasn't. Noise wasn't going to stop on its own. All right, he said quietly. We go together. Upstairs again. They climbed the staircase slowly, each step groaning louder than the last. The storm outside made the windows rattle violently, like something was trying to get in or out. At the top landing, the dark end of the hallway felt even heavier, like the shadows had thickened during the night. Lila whispered, Evan, look. At the far end, right before the darkness swallowed the hallway completely, something shifted. Not a shape, not a person, just movement, faint, flowing, like fabric sliding. Evan's breath left him. We're going back downstairs, he said immediately. They didn't run, but they didn't walk either. It was something in between, a fast shuffle fueled by terror. They locked themselves back in the living room, shut the curtains, and waited. Every few minutes, distant thumps echoed from upstairs. Once, They could have sworn they heard a low humming, like someone whispering too softly to understand. The night dragged on for what felt like eternity. The gray morning. When dawn finally crept through the storm clouds, the rain slowed to a drizzle. The house seemed quieter now. Too quiet, like whatever had stalked the halls during the night had slipped away before the sun rose. Evan and Lila forced themselves upstairs to see what had been happening. The hallway floor was wet, not soaked, just damp, as though something had walked through the house tracking moisture. But the wet prints didn't look like footprints. They were too long, too thin, 4 narrow shapes in each one, like elongated claws. They stretched from the dark end of the hallway, down the stairs, through the living room, and toward the back door. Evan whispered, "These aren't human." Lila's lips trembled, and they weren't there last night. Before they could process it, a knock sounded at the front door. They jolted, but it was just Mrs. Donnelly from next door. Her eyes were wide with worry. "I didn't sleep a wink," she said. "Your lights kept flickering, and I thought I saw someone in your upstairs window. Tall figure, standing still for hours." Evan felt the chill crawl up his spine again. "And around 3, she added, lowering her voice, "something was walking around your backyard. I could see the silhouette. Didn't look like any man I've ever seen." She crossed herself. "You kids must have been terrified." They were, and they still were. Parents returned. When their parents finally came home a couple of hours later, Lila burst into tears. Evan tried to tell the story calmly, but his voice shook the whole time. Their father inspected the house, but found no intruder. No broken windows. No signs of forced entry. But the wet, claw-shaped tracks remained on the floor. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Kids, sometimes storms make strange noises. Maybe the floor leaked." Evan shook his head sharply. "Dad, don't brush this off. You didn't hear the knocks. You didn't hear the dragging. Something was in this house." Their father didn't argue, but he also didn't have an explanation. He quietly cleaned the tracks, though he seemed uneasy touching them. Before leaving the room, he muttered, "As your grandpa used to say, sometimes you don't need to see the wolf to know it's hunting." They never forgot. Nothing else happened that week, or the week after. But every stormy night that followed, the house creaked differently. Echoes traveled oddly down the hall, and sometimes the siblings swore they heard something faintly tapping upstairs, even when the hallway bulb was finally replaced. Lila and Evan never forgot that night. Not the knocking, not the dragging, not the prints that didn't match anything alive in New Jersey. And sometimes, when the rain hits just right, Lila still receives a text from Evan even years later. "Did you hear that? Just checking, in case it's back." Because one thing they both learned that night was another old American proverb. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it sure ain't a ghost. But whatever stalked their old New Jersey house that stormy night was no duck.